Hey, Padre fans, how was your offseason? Well, you've lost your MVP candidate, your Manager of the Year candidate, and your defending Cy Young Award winner. But besides that,
you are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, how could I have a lower third that claims I'm Sully? I am a baseball podcaster. I've been so for the last decade or so, and we're about to begin my sixth season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And Instagram, I am your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And a quick reminder that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more win. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Really observant watchers of the YouTube video will notice that I'm not the only person on the screen. Right over there, with a beautiful head of hair, lovely glasses, and images of Pac-Man all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's friend of the podcast, Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. We're doing a crossover today. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great as I finish sending my last text messages, of course, as one does when they're recording a podcast.
Yeah,
I'm doing great, man.
Been on to bother you. Are you playing Wordle? Are you now playing Wordle? What else are you doing?
No, but it's called Squeegee. It's this lemon game. Hold on, no. Hear me out, everybody. You need to go check this out.
Not a sponsor. Not a sponsor.
Squeezy word game. Just go look it up. It's with these like lemons. It's got a blank, looking screen.
Yeah,
go check that out.
I'm not playing enough games to start my day between my mom and Julie and I playing. My cousin Julie and I and my mother playing Wordle. Playing Connections with some of my friends, playing Immaculate Grid with my cousin Dave and with Jeff from
Times
Locked On
Mini
Dodgers.
Crossword, maybe you could throw that in there.
There you go. Or I could learn more about life, or we can answer the trivia question like the one I threw out yesterday when I had Mr. Antonellis on from the Worcester Red Sox. The question was, who is the only first-round draft pick that the Red Sox have ever made who went on to the Hall of Fame? Only one first-rounder in Red Sox history now has a plaque in Cooperstown. Can you throw a guess out? And for
is it someone of like the last 20 years?
I can tell you, his picture is somewhere over my shoulder right now.
It says 82 Red Sox.
He's on that one and on the one next to it. He appears in two pictures over my shoulder.
I can't see it perfectly.
All right. The answer is Jim Rice. Jim Rice.
For my time, what can I say?
Is the only one. Now, Roger Clemens should be the second one. But the Roger Clemens has become problematic. But Jim Rice is in the Hall of Fame as a Red Sox first round draft pick. But we're not talking about the Red Sox. We're talking about the San Diego Padres. And we're talking, especially in this first segment, I want to just talk about the National League, the potential of the National League playoffs altogether. We've seen how weird the National League playoffs have been. And I've been a broken record of this, but the last bunch of complete seasons, the only division winner to win a pennant since 2018 of a full season, not counting the COVID season, has been the Atlanta Braves, who are a team that had a losing record in August of that year of 2021. The Nats, the Braves, and Nats were a wild card. Braves were a sub 90 win team. The Phillies I would hate to bring that up. The Phillies in 2022, last year with the D-backs. I mean, we're seeing it doesn't take a juggernaut to win the pennant. And in fact, it doesn't even take 90 wins. So you're looking around. If you're a team sort of hovering somewhere in the middle, you've got to think, hey, why don't I just make any move worth 2 or 3 wins? And that might be, and then you could be telling your fans, hey, we delivered a pennant for you. The Padres, of course, went all in a couple of years ago. What's your take on them right now, and how do you think they fit in this wild National League race?
Whew. They are in easily the quietest stretch that they've had in a long time. Because of, actually not the quietest. I think the quietest was actually heading into the 2022 season, which ended up going well, which is why I think that a big important debate amongst Padres folk right now is like, where exactly to allocate your resources, because this is a team that has been the big spenders. They've been the big trade partners for everybody. Whoever is good at baseball, general manager AJ Preller is interested. Apparently, that's all it takes for him to give you a call. But instead, they've actually played it a little bit more slick. They've made a lot of smaller moves, with the exception of the Juan Soto trade, which was partially, dare I say, majority of a money issue because of their TV deal and the loan and blah, 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 and all the things that people like, talking about, running into the ground, that they had that thing, but they also got a lot of pitching depth behind it. So they did that. They, instead of keeping Scott Barlow, one of their relief pitchers that, they traded for at the deadline last year from Kansas City, really effective player, off season though, this past year. And instead they traded him to Cleveland and got Enil De Los Santos, and then they went and signed Yuki Matsui and Wusat Go. So they spread their money out a little bit more to have some more depth. And it's just, you're not used to seeing that, especially under the AJ Preller tenure. This is a guy who's traded like every prospect that is worth anything for as many different stars as he can. And sometimes it's worked. Like you alluded to before with the Phillies National League Championship Series, they unfortunately didn't win. But on the other hand, it's like, well, the Padres haven't won 90 games since AJ Preller took over. And I think that for a team with all these stars, they have really underperformed in a lot of ways. The fact that you just don't know what the heck you're getting from this team. First year of Machado, they start off good, then they fall apart in the second half. In 2020, they are the story of baseball. Tatis becomes a superstar, even more so. He's on the cover of MLB The Show. They lose to the Dodgers because the Padres' top 2 pitchers were out, even though the Dodgers like to act like they beat us fair and square, whatever. Then you have 2021, where it's like Darvish and Snell and Kim and all these other different moves. And then they have one of the biggest collapses of the second half in history. Then the year after that, they're like, oh God, so we lost Tatis to an injury and suspension. And also we basically only trust Manny Machado on this team. And then they win 89 games in terms of the lineup, at least. And that happens. And then this past year,
and get to within 3 wins of the World Series.
3 wins within the World Series. And you're like, I mean, this is great. And then heading into this year, you get a full year of Juan Soto now, not just half a year. Then you get Xander Bogaerts added to your team, 2-time World Series champion. He's a pure hitter in every sense of the word. And you also, you get some starting pitchers in the back end with Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. And then you're somehow, dare I say, even more miserable than the 2021 collapse. It's been one of the harder teams to predict because every time the hype is there, every time they make the flashy signs and moves, that tends not to be when they do well. It's when they just kind of play a little bit more low key and trust in the stars that they already have to perform that they tend to do better, which is all to say, Sully, everyone's kind of looking down on them. They don't have the hype behind them this year. So maybe it's kind of like the anti-Giants, where it's I guess this is an even year, so I can't say anti-Giants, but something along that line.
Well, I think you make a great point. And when we get back, I want to talk about the fact that despite all the defections, and we can assume there'll be one more defection, you can actually look at this Padre team and think that, hey, now wait a minute. Not only are they not a potential disaster, but they may still be in it, provided one key element happens with this team. Now, look, I got to tell you, Javier, it might be time for me to try to convince you to join FanDuel. Because right now, new customers like you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet at FanDuel, which I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Oh, I love
number
FanDuel.
one sportsbook. They're America's number one sportsbook. You said you like FanDuel?
I do. They're fantastic. They're the only place to go for all your bets. Obviously, everyone knows that.
Well, give me an example of some of the bets we may have. I guess we're switching characters that you're the one who knows about it.
Yeah, why not? Hey, look, man, we're in hoops action right now. The NFL's over. I don't care about no Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and Mahomes, he's so great. No. We're betting on hoops now. We've got the women's tournament. We've got the men's tournament coming up. We have Caitlin Clark. Everyone's heard of her. She's balling. And then if you just want to, get some under the radar picks, what I love about FanDuel is also, Sully, you could bet on everything. Individual stats. You want to bet on Victor Wembanyama blocks? You could do that. Apparently, he just casually gets 6 a night now, because that's normal, apparently, in today's NBA, with this freak at 19 years old who's like 8 feet tall. You could do that. I like Tyus Jones, underrated as an assist guy. So maybe you want to bet assist stuff. He has like 28 over his last 3 games or something like that. Something crazy. But yeah, Sully, they just have you covered in every respect. And the deal is incredible. I mean,
tell me more about this deal, seeing that I'm now the person who doesn't know about this.
It's $150 in bonus bets if you win, first-time customers, your first $5 bet. All you got to do is win. So you want to just bet like, hey, I think the Denver Nuggets, defending champions, will win tomorrow. I'll put $5 on that. Boom! They give you $150 for free. Just like that for the rest of FanDuel betting. Just like that.
Well, it feels unlucky not to do this. This is incredible.
Exactly. Precisely that. And
well,
do you know where you can get it, man? Oh, you're about to say it.
The best I know is you get it at FanDuel.com/locked-on, and that's where I can shoot my shot.
Absolutely. Go check that out, guys. FanDuel.com/locked-on. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's hoop season, and we'll soon be in baseball season. They've got some future odds up there as well. Go check it out.
I hear it's the official sportsbook partner of the National Basketball Association.
That is also true.
By the way, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7 with the top sports of the day for the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available at the free Fire TV channels app. Okay, it's not often that let's just assume Blake Snell is going to sign elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not often you can lose a front runner for the National League MVP, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, someone who was always in the discussion for Manager of the Year, lose all 3 of them in 1 year and walk away with a certain amount of optimism.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's because, first of all, as you alluded to, they still have Machado, they still have Tatis, and Bogarts is apparently moving to second base.
Correct.
So they could have the depth that they need at shortstop with the superior defensive shortstop right now.
Yep.
They still have some. If Musgrove, Mr. No-Hitter, can bounce and have a decent year this year, and Darvish can give him a decent year this year, and I like Shildt. I thought he did a good job, but he managed. I thought that was a great pickup because I thought he got really screwed by St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, Sully, that was one of the reasons I was weirded out about him, because I tend to actually put like a lot of value in, like, let's say the Rockies make a decision to cut Shildt. I'm like, okay, classic Rockies, they're being dumb. But it was the Cardinals, and the Cardinals usually aren't very dumb in a lot of areas, but maybe they're in that stretch where they're making questionable decisions. So look, he's won a Manager of the Year before. The team seems to like him. I think that Ruben Niebla, pitching coach for the Padres, he's been on record and has given some interviews talking to, like, they just work well together. And that's not a shot at Bob Melvin. I think that's really important to get out. Like, now, I personally think that the problem is AJ Preller. I do not think that if you're on your 6th manager that you just happen to just have 6 straight years or seasons of bad managing. No, it's also on you at this point. But now my thing is, maybe this is just a question of fit. Maybe Melvin's going to be awesome for the Giants and Shildt will be awesome for the Padres. It's totally possible.
I think it's funny. We talk about Shildt and him clashing with St. Louis after he had a remarkable September in 2021 when they went on this massive winning streak,
Yeah.
put all the other teams in the dust.
Knocked mine out, yeah.
Yeah, and then suddenly they fire him. I think when you take a look, for years and years, the Cardinals were, I would say, you bet against the Cardinals at your own peril.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at what they've done since the, with the one sort of year, since the losing in the 2015 playoffs to Chicago,
mm-hmm.
They made the NLCS in 2019 where they didn't realize those games counted because they were so badly beaten by Washington. But they have traded a galaxy of quality players, whether it's a Rosarena, whether it's Sandy Alcantara, whether it's Zach Gallen. If Zach Gallen wins a Cy Young Award, then they would have traded 2 Cy Young Award winners in one trade. And the player, they bring back an Arenado, they bring back Goldschmidt, but now they're like, their wheels are spinning. They're signing any, aging pitcher to their rotation, and Mozeliak, the general manager, seems to be making one horrible decision after another. So I think the letting go of Shildt had less to do with his ability as a manager and more of a GM just kind of playing whack-a-mole right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be in the favor of the Padres. I'll give you a weird example of a team. I mean, this just occurred to me that there may be a parallel here. That in the 2010s, the Nationals were contenders left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Lest we forget, in 2012, Davey Johnson was the manager. In 2014, Matt Williams was the manager. In 2016, Dusty Baker was the manager. In 2019, Dave Martinez was the manager.
Mm-hmm.
They had 4 managers while going on that great run.
Mm-hmm.
And when they finally made it and won it all, it was after they lost Bryce Harper. It was after they lost many key players.
I see what you're getting at, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
After they lose, and this is, believe me, I know I'm talking about Padre fans, so I can't possibly knock Bryce Harper because Bryce Harper was, the dagger in the heart in 2022. That being said, the whole and of all the managers that they had, Dave Martinez looked like the most clueless one. And remember the Nationals were, and the Nats were having a losing record heading into June of 2019. Mm-hmm. And they looked like, we're going to have to start selling off some of these players because this is just turning into a catastrophe. Next thing you know, first Washington championship since 1924.
Yeah. I mean, this is the number one sport where things can just happen. And I think that here's the important part, including that Nationals team. They still had stars, though. I think that's another comparison here where it's like still had Scherzer. At the time, still had Patrick Corbin. I know he stinks now, but Patrick Corbin was effective. Strasburg was a good pitcher, assuming he was healthy. Rendon, I believe Ryan Zimmerman, heck, Howie Kendrick. They still had pieces. The key is if the Padres lost stuff and they had nothing to replace, a la Oakland, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Tampa, teams like that, where they lose their stars and then are just trying to convince everyone that they're Moneyball, because that's the greatest red herring thing ever created is Moneyball, where everyone thinks that that's how you win, when that's not really how you win. This Padres team, everyone hits me up all the time, Sully, well, you've lost 15 combined WAR between Snell, Soto, and this. And I'm like, yeah, it stinks. I'd rather have them. But here's the thing. None of this is set in stone. Mm-hmm. The idea that we know that Snell, Soto, and them will be worth 15 again. That's one thing. The other thing is you're discounting Tatis didn't hit how he usually does last year. Manny Machado didn't hit how he usually does last year. Xander Bogaerts was one of the least clutch players in the entire league last year. Same thing for Jake Cronenworth and Trent Grisham, who's now on the Yankees. So who's to say that they don't improve and make up for the lack of those guys? Who's to say that every other player around the league is going to be the exact same wins above replacement, exact same stats, that it's just going to be run it back last year, but the Padres are going to be 79 wins because they lost those 4 guys. There's a lack of understanding of how sports work, in my opinion. Sometimes there are going to be teams every year, this is how it works, that make the playoffs that will not make it this year. That could be Arizona. It won't be the Dodgers, unfortunately, but that could be Arizona. It's probably going to be Miami. There's going to be a new team in there. There always is. And my thing is, they still have the stars. And if Tatis, that man won a platinum glove last year, Sully. If he hits the way that he usually does, now that, it's been longer and no longer the shoulder injury and it's a year off the suspension, he could be a 9-win player, and all of a sudden it's like, as long as the rest of the Padres don't lose, what did they go? 9-23 in 1-run games, 2-12 in extra inning games. That stuff tends to not follow year to year. This isn't like other sports where you're like, yeah, it's just kind of part of the Dallas Cowboys to blow it. Yeah, it's just kind of part of James Harden in the NBA to be atrocious in the playoffs. That's not the case with baseball. Usually there's a regression to the mean. And I think if the Padres just go 6-6 in extra innings, they make the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, and that's not a question of their talent. That's a question of just, it was a really weird year. Xander Bogaerts hit under 200 with runners in scoring position last year. With the Red Sox, he hit 300 over his career there. Believe.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. With Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres, I'm your pal Sully of Locked On MLB. You made an amazing point.
Thank you.
That the 1-run game and the extra inning games, all of those games are ones where a bounce here or there, a ground ball beat out, a foul ball that doesn't curve foul. Suddenly you win those games. Those are games where it's no longer skill. It's just chance at one point here and there. And if they were mediocre in either 1-run game or the extra inning games, they would have been ahead of Arizona. Mm-hmm. And if they did exactly what Arizona did, we're talking about, hey, the defending national champion San Diego Padres. And is this a dynasty? Because this is 2 straight NLCSs. I mean, it's surreal, but it also, it shows how fast things can turn around. I mean, in 2021, the Rangers and the Diamondbacks were both 100-loss teams. Mm-hmm. And they faced each other in the World Series 2 years later. A bounce here or there, but also remember what we alluded to earlier, that they made a couple of adjustments. Mm-hmm. Maybe having Bogaerts at second base all year relaxes him. Mm-hmm. Maybe he should be a second baseman. But at this point, this is your job now. This is where you are. You give us the best second base you can give and get some big hits. And he gets an extra hit here or there. Maybe that's an extra inning game they win, or a 1-run game that they win, that Bogart whiffs. Instead of whiffing, he hits a double down the line. And all of a sudden you do one more of those each month. And next thing you know, I mean, we talk about the Padres last year as if it was a catastrophic season. They had a winning year. Yeah, they got off that rocky, terrible part of the middle of the season. That if that part was merely mediocre, they're a playoff team, and we're having a different conversation.
Yeah, they found a way to be worst case scenario all the time, and that to me is not. That's a little bit more fluky than it is a reflection of what the team is. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'd mentioned the Bogart stats, and again, he got hit by a Spencer Strider fastball. 79 plate appearances, Sully, to start the year. 178 WRC plus. Coincidentally, gets hit by that Spencer Strider fastball in the wrist area that's been bothering for him for years, in the same wrist. A 78 WRC plus for his next 79 plate appearances. And who's to say it didn't affect him for longer? Second half of the season, he was a 138 WRC plus guy. First half, 102. Everyone loves telling me, and I've been making this my bit lately, everyone loves talking about Trey Turner and how Trey Turner, he redeemed himself at the end. He's back. Well, Trey Turner, he had a 140 WRC plus second half, was even worse in the first half than Xander Bogaerts. And Xander Bogaerts had a great second half too. So I don't understand this thing where Bogaerts is like done. He's finished. Still put together nearly a 4.5 win season. All he had to do was drive runs in. And that's something that I do not think is tied to skill. It's kind of fluky. You know what I mean? Like, that's a fluky thing to happen for this long, especially considering it's not like he's ever had this problem before. So the injuries and everything. And like you said, like, if they just go so that we're 2-12, if they go 7-7 in extra innings, they're in the playoffs. It's not even close. Not even close. Forget being positive in those areas. 2022 Minnesota Twins. I just looked them up just now. They weren't great at run games. 20-28. And then they make the playoffs last year. So that's not even nearly as bad as the Padres were in one-run games. So could you imagine how obvious it is if they had a regression to the mean in one-score games? Then the Padres certainly can, because theirs was even more crazy and egregious.
And another factor is that one thing that we've learned over the last bunch of years, especially if you're going to try to make, if you're trying to say, okay, let's punch our ticket to the postseason and take our chances, because that tends to be that, that should be the mindset that a lot of people have if you're putting a team together here. But the what's what I was trying to wrap my mind around this, that the idea that the having pitching depth is going to go a long way. If you punch your ticket and you're going to get some pitching depth, that's one of the keys. And the trading away of Soto, while it was financially motivated, it wasn't like the Mookie Betts disaster for the Red Sox.
Exactly.
Where they got bupkis. Absolute bupkis for him. They got a mediocre platoon outfielder, backup catching, and someone who they were enamored because his first name was Jeter.
Yeah.
Michael King is a valuable pitcher.
Very good.
He's a good reliever. He's a good starter. And
absolutely.
Guess what? Both Johnny Brito and Randy Vasquez both pitched well at the major league level last year.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're Michael King is a very valuable pitcher. The other two are major league pitchers. I'm not saying that they are Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine, but they are major league pitchers, which means they got 3 major league pitchers at least for him, which may not make up for his production, but it means that that's at least 3 spots in their staff where you could say, well, there's a major leaguer, there's a major leaguer, there's a major leaguer.
There's hope. And this is a team that's needed depth before. The 2021 collapse, you remember when Jake Arrieta, Vincent Velasquez had to make starts for the Padres?
Oh, yeah.
I'll take Brito and Velasquez, and I'll certainly take King. King, 2.6 ERA since 2022.
Yeah.
30% strikeout rate also over that stretch. If he's healthy, the guy's good. Don't get me wrong, there's some fear where some people might tell me, oh, well, I mean, the Yankees, like, why would they want to give him up? Well, because they had to give up something for Soto. That's why.
Right.
And second, I just think that this is a team that when you just look at them overall, they've never made these moves to a degree for depth. And I think that what was the first point that you were making? I'm trying to remember the other thing that I was going to say. I blanked.
That they got the pitching depth, that it was not a salary dump. It was salary motivated, but they got back valuable pieces.
And they're still spending a lot. Yeah. The Red Sox, it was like, that is only money because you're the Boston Red Sox. You guys could buy Ohtani and Soto right now if you wanted to, and probably be fine. And now they're more interested in Liverpool. So I know Red Sox fans who were like, dude, no, it wasn't. It's just that, they wanted to do this and that. And I'm like, guys, I've seen this before. I've been watching baseball for long enough. The Red Sox ownership does not currently care. That is exactly what that is. That is the best player they've had since Pedro Martinez, and it's not close. All the respect to David Ortiz, Mookie Betts is a better player. Yeah. So, like, my thing is, that's all it was. And they tried to justify. They were like, no, but they're doing this and this and that.
What are they doing?
No, this is what major league teams and ownership do. They count on the Moneyball philosophy to trick fans into thinking it's actually better not to do that. You're the Boston Red Sox. He wasn't getting $500 million. He knew that. And then they traded him for nothing. Yeah. Nothing. They didn't use Connor Wong barely at all. Jeter Downs, I'm pretty sure, was cut. And then Alex Verdugo, like you said, a player that belongs on a major league roster. Yes. Solid player. He has his moments. And I actually think might be okay for the Yankees this year, by the way.
Yeah, but it's not. They could get a player like him for like in a bargain basement. You have to give up Mookie Betts for that. But
even at their best, the Padres don't have the same reserves financially that the Red Sox do. So at least them, it's like, it hasn't been as successful and they still have stars. The Red Sox were like, let's just get rid of him. And then we'll also lose Bogarts. We'll keep Devers because the fans might revolt if we don't at least keep one. But I'm saying, guys, I've watched this before. It's kicking the can down the road. And I think the Padres, in fairness, it's a rare situation that they're in where them trading the superstar wasn't only just because I was like, yep, they gave up. It's because they can't. They actually literally can't because they have Tatis, Machado, Bogarts on the books for another like 15 years. So it would be kind of crazy if you don't just commit for a little bit. And even if they say, all right, we're not doing the 240 million payroll anymore, that's fine. They're spending a lot, though. They're going to be in the top part of the league, and that's what's important. I'll be more concerned about the Padres and their spending if they don't spend next offseason, because next offseason is a lot more stacked of a free agent class, in my opinion, which is one of the reasons I actually think I'm okay with losing Blake Snell at the moment. But I love him, though. Love my guy. He's hilarious. We love him. So that's my thing, man. People are counting him out.
And obviously, since the deaths of Peter Seidler, there's thoughts that they weren't going to spend it all, but I think it was the difference between making the playoffs and not.
Yeah.
I think you're doing right. Well, look at Javier. We got to wrap this up here, but I am going to throw the trivia question out there. And the trivia question is going to be Padres World Series related.
Okay.
The Padres, in their entire history, have won one World Series game. The trivia question is this. In the one game in the history of the Padres in the World Series that the Padres won, how many innings did the starting pitcher last? You can't answer it. How many innings did the starting pitcher last for the Padres starting pitcher last in the only World Series in their franchise history that they ever won? That's the trivia question. Put it down in the here on YouTube or on Twitter. Go to Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Javier Reyes, where can we find you?
Find me at Javipeno, Javiipeno. I'm not fully on the baseball tweet bandwagon for my personal account because the season hasn't started yet. Will be soon, but if you want only Padres stuff, at LO_Padres, and of course Locked On Padres on YouTube as well.
Feeling the love for the Friars with Javier Reyes. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Padres crossover. And Pac-Man running at me. I am your host. That's Javier Reyes. And I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.